Welcome back to the Lift for Life. Sorry.
Irish. Lift for Life podcast.
What on earth was that? I was going to say start that again, but let's keep that in there. That is... Anyway, welcome back to the Lift for Life podcast. Even the best make mistakes, right, G-Dog?
Even the best.
Even the best. And it's a pleasure being in the studio with you, G-Dog. How are you this evening?
I'm great, because I've been sticking to my new plan.
Yes. And I was about to say, you're looking quite shredded.
Am I?
Yeah. Wow. Looking particularly good. Can we pet pop yet? We had this amazing moment, though, in the sauna recently, didn't we? Where
You thought I almost had it.
He did. I was like, you can do both at the same time. And then...
No, but there was, my left one went.
Left one went, but not the right one. That was the problem. So we need to try and get, just think, playing a tune. I said, we will rock you. Works really well, doesn't it, G-Dog?
Doesn't work with me, but yeah.
I'm a bit interested by this colour combo we got going.
Because you complained that I think I had a blue shirt on and my black quarterzip from Ralph Lauren. And you said it was bad to have black and blue. And I just suddenly realized when I went on air that I put a blue cap on with my black top on. So I knew you were going to mention it.
Your hat's already a bit wonky as well. But anyway, more about you.
We said we'd have a string dangling down so that I know it's centered on my nose.
Just a dog treat, just hanging there. Keep the cap here. But obviously, we need to talk about you even more.
Even more.
And... You've had, funnily enough, one of those moments where you went, oh, Angus was right again. And obviously, it is something that we talk about a lot of the time, but you're actually surprised by how much of an impact it's had. And what is that with your fat loss journey?
I don't like the term fat loss journey. It sounds so obese dog. So I told Angus that I wanted to shred for the summer. And so he said, let's see if we can do it. And what you've got to do is you've got to reduce your alcohol intake, or very specifically change your alcohol intake to lower calorie options. So I've been having Lucky Saint instead of wine. I've been having vodka lime soda instead of a gin and tonic.
Hang on, you've not been having Lucky Saint instead of wine. That is a total lie. You are full of rubbish.
There were a couple of examples.
No, you might have a Lucky
Dubai.
Saint instead of a beer. You're not going to have a Lucky Saint.
I never have beer.
Well, then why? How does Lucky Saint replace wine? And also, I've seen you multiple times at places like Dorian having red wine. So... It's a complete lie. You're just consuming less alcohol.
Yeah, I'm consuming less alcohol. Yeah. But for example, I was at Zuma for dinner the other week, and I had, I think, Japanese version of Lucky Saint. So I am having lower alcohol.
What was the alcohol called? Do you know the Japanese version?
I can't remember. It's a Japanese version. It's a low alcohol Kirin beer, I think.
Okay.
So, or maybe it was Asahi Zero.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Probably was, yeah. Anyway, so I had that, and so that's one aspect of it. But I think the vodka lime soda has actually been a big thing, so I really like that. So you get a little bit of lime juice in a sort of shot glass, then vodka with ice on it, and then a bottle of soda water, and you sort of mix it yourself, and it's actually quite cool. I like it a lot.
But the lime juice
is fine because the lime juice is squeezed limes. So it's not lime cordial.
I was just double checking.
Yeah, if it was lime cordial, it's got sugar in it. So I'm very aware of that. So I've made sure it's always squeezed lime juice. And there's normally 2 limes that have been squeezed.
These poor waiters and waitresses.
Yeah,
he sat there being like, it must be.
But it's obviously, it's not just about that. So that's one aspect of it. The other one is the steps. So I was generally targeting 10,000 a day, quite often getting 7 or 8. Now I'm targeting 15,000 a day and being very disciplined about hitting 15,000. So I've been getting, today, I was working from home at the early part of this morning because I had a 6:30 Zoom call. And so on the way into the office, I went in later, so the tube was empty. So I got off 2 stops before my normal stop in order to be able to walk further into the office. So I do that. And then I top up on the treadmill. So at the end of my lifting session, due to various time-saving techniques, which we will discuss in this podcast, at the end of my lifting session, I will do maybe 20 minutes on the incline treadmill, and that will also increase my steps. And then also I'm being hyper-disciplined on my aggregate calorie intake during the day to try and stick to around a 400 to 500 calorie deficit. So my normal is 2,800 something, 2,850. So I've been trying to stick to 2,300 calories a day. And I actually weighed myself today. And obviously, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm trying to shred fat, but inevitably it's going to have an impact on my weight. And I did, for the first time, weigh 89 kilos. I've weighed 90 kilos for 2 years. And so I couldn't quite believe it. So I stood off the thing and stood on it again and checked that it was centered, because last time I did it, it hadn't been centered at the bottom. And so it was miscalculating it. But I genuinely have lost a kilo.
The funny thing is as well, is you'll be worried about getting skinny, won't you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that you said this in the sauna. So you said one problem is, G, your shoulders looking a little bit sort of smaller.
No, I didn't.
You did. You said it in the
more
sauna.
Defined. How does he take it? I am, honestly, it's like on this podcast, it's like you make out like I'm some sort of bully who just like abuses you the whole time. When actually, you've been with me for so long now and we're best mates and I support you. We've had it at multiple dinners going, yeah, Angus just said it looked rubbish. I was like, hang on a minute. No, I didn't. Anyway. Oh.
But this podcast is on something which is fascinating in the context of this, because it's on screen time. So before it's
the topic of conversation is why your phone is destroying your progress.
Yes, fair, exactly.
So it is on screen time.
It's sort of on screen time, yeah. But before we do that, your shred or non-shred, what's your phase at the moment?
So I'm in a fat loss phase, and I'm happy to call it that because I'm not a child. And the big changes for me is I've dropped my calorie intake. So that's been the main change, but nothing too dramatic.
But why are you on a fat loss phase? Because you're not fat.
Yeah, but neither are you. I'm in a phase where I just want to get a little bit leaner. And that's just because I enjoy playing with the variables a bit as well. I think going into the summer months, it's always nice to be like, I don't necessarily need goals or I'm bothered about photos on the beach because I'm not as vain as G-Dog. But it's nice for me because obviously we're going to Mykonos together in May. So I'm actually like, oh, do you know what? I'll go on a bit of a shred myself.
So annoying, because the thing is, if you didn't and I did, then it would be more with sort of equalizing. But if we both do it at the same time, then I've got to go even harder.
Wow, that's what I mean. So I motivate you even more. And then the other thing is, steps is just such a vital thing. It's just aiming more towards that 15,000 mark. I mean, admittedly, I could be more religious about it slightly, but I'm minimum 10,000 a day without fail. And that is something interesting enough that's had, I think the big impact though is, and we've spoken about it, is digestion as well. You do digest food so much better when you are putting in more steps, don't you?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. But anyway, should we crack on with the podcast topic? So this topic is actually really inspired, without sounding too selfish, by myself, from a journey is the word that I don't want to use, but is factually, I guess, the correct term. A bit of a journey I've been on with phones, but also what I've noticed with clients who've had the best results and the ones who've actually ended up not having as good a results as those ones that have had the best results. And it was actually in January. I was chatting with one of my good friends and I just said to him, I was like, look, I'm really happy in my life, genuinely happy. I've got an amazing relationship. I've got amazing friends. I absolutely love what I do, but I feel like something's missing. And we went back and forth. And he just goes, Angus, what's your screen time? And I went, what? And he goes, Angus, what's your screen time? And I went, I can't tell you that. And he goes, why? I was like, I'm actually too embarrassed. And it was like my soul left my body because he'd found that little nugget almost that was the thing that was actually holding me back from like a lot more happiness. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but there are so many people who are overthinkers, have really bad anxiety, really struggle with their mental health. And obviously this is not in all cases, and I want to make that very clear. I'm not here to say that there are elements that are totally factually correct, that people are suffering from depression. But I think a big impact on people's overthinking, anxiety, lack of productivity is because they're so hooked to their phones. So he basically challenged me. He was like, for the next afternoon, all it was. So we had we were on the phone at 11:30 till about 12:15, let's say, for this conversation. So he's like, for the whole afternoon, I want you to ban yourself from scrolling, clear up your phone, and see how you get on. I had the most productive, best feeling afternoon I'd had in like months, because even someone like me who was already a very happy person, already like, things were going really well in life, I was actually holding myself back from happiness because phone addiction's the wrong word, but I was just filling my time doing mindless stuff, thinking I was relaxing, but that was just pushing me into this kind of overthinking feeling. So that's the personal side of things. Is there anything you want to add to that part?
No, I completely agree with that. My issue is I've shifted a lot of my newspaper consumption to the phone.
Yeah.
So whereas previously I'd read the hard copy version of the Financial Times, for example, now I read it on my phone. So a lot of my screen time is spent reading the Financial Times, which is critical for my job, but it's not ideal, I admit.
But that is productive. So going on to a little bit more about what I've discovered. So I have done, funnily enough, so much research into this because I was so fascinated by even myself, who everyone around me would be like, oh, you're a really upbeat, positive guy. Suddenly I was like, yeah, but it just felt like something was missing. When I just started to become even more disciplined with my phone, what that did for my mood and productivity was like, so when you're actually using tech for productivity, that's a completely different, I guess, hit of dopamine because it's delayed gratification. And so the problem is with scrolling on our phones is we are constantly in this cycle that is endless. So there's never a point where there is an end to it. And so we're always getting that quick hit. And then when we eventually put your phone down, we are absolutely knackered because your mind and effects has never stopped, really. Whereas a great thing if you're like reading paper, which obviously would be better if you're reading it in terms of if it was printed, but it's obviously delayed gratification because you have to read through the whole article in order to get to where you need to get to. It's the same with like watching a film. Like watching a film is actually a far better thing to do than scrolling on TikTok, for example, because you have to watch the whole thing as a delayed gratification. Again, watching sports, another example of that as well.
Oh, I see. Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't appreciate it. So screen time is not generic. It's different aspects of screen time.
Yeah, absolutely. So using screen time and tech from a productivity standpoint is obviously there are better ways of doing certain things, but it's far better than doing things like scrolling. It is simply doom scrolling that is what is holding so many people back from a mental health and performance.
I have tried to reduce some of my screen time by, like, for example, talking to ChatGPT instead of actually reading it. So that was the useful thing on my walk today. So between getting off the tube and getting to the office, it was, I don't know, a 15-minute walk. And I spent the entire walk talking to ChatGPT about work-related stuff. And I learned so much on that 15-minute walk by questioning and getting the right prompts. So, and therefore I wasn't staring at the phone. But if I'd been on the tube, I probably would have been staring at my phone reading it. So it was quite interesting that I was getting neat by walking and also learning by talking and not having the screen time.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And moving on in terms of where I think, from a results perspective, people are obviously struggling so much with their screen time is the gym. It absolutely destroys your training intensity. So the amount of people I now see, because I'm so disciplined with it, sometimes I won't even train with my phone. I actually like write down my workout out now and then use a notepad. But if I'm training with my phone, I have airplane mode on and I just make sure that I'm just really focused. But you realize when you're not absolutely hooked to it, how hooked people are like zombies. And I mean that in the nicest way. you will look across at the benches and people are arched over, resting 5 minutes between each set. And, when you think about it, they're in the gym for like an hour, but they're only training for like 15 minutes. And that's why you're not seeing results, is because every time you're obviously scrolling in between sets. Also, what's so fascinating is your mind is so much less focused. So actually, it's highly likely that your mind-muscle connection is going to be worse because your mind is so focused on the dopamine that you're depleting through scrolling, which is insane, isn't it?
It's true. And this is one of the other aspects of this new routine that you've given me. So in addition to the increase in NEAT, in addition to the changing the program to more hypertrophy focused, and in addition to the calorie focus aspect of it, you've also told me to focus on my rest times in the gym. So before, I would do exactly what Angus has said is a terrible thing. So I would spend longer in the gym, particularly on my lunchtime session, and it's had a big impact on my efficiency and work as a result of this, because I would be doing my 10 reps on my barbell back squat and then having a 5-minute rest period before going back and do the next 10 reps, and then a 5-minute rest period, and then doing another 10 reps. Now, Angus has specifically put on it 90 seconds rest.
And then for G-Dog is the only client out there in capital letters. It's time it.
And therefore, my gym sessions, I've noticed, have become shorter, and yet I'm still doing exactly the same thing. And it's basically because I've shortened my rest periods all of the time.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Like the difference it makes. And I think the big thing was for me was like the mood shift I experienced was so huge. And I was already, even with spending too much time on my phone, a very happy and positive person. You know that, my friends know that, my family know that. And suddenly when I just was like, right, I have this rule where I'm not allowing myself to scroll. So with social media, for example, people are like, yeah, but you're always posting on Instagram. So I now post. The stories that I view are of friends and clients. So I see that. Obviously, it's not optimal, but I see that as productivity. I'm DMing people on social media, so I'm having conversations in my DMs. But I never allow myself to scroll down, which might sound hilarious, but trust me, it works. So the top posts that are coming up on my feed are people that I want to engage with, like G-Dog, for example. And then when I'm posting, obviously, on the Live for Life page, I'm just posting, great, that's up. And then any comments that go on, I'll reply to. Because I'm like, okay, that's productive. So it's not depleting my dopamine like obviously scrolling would do.
Yeah. And I mean, I obviously did some research into the impact on your training from the rest periods. And basically the headline is that phones quietly dilute your training intensity. So an intended 90-second rest period may drag on to 4 minutes, as I've discussed, and your heart rate drops too low between the sets. And what you want to do is keep your heart rate up. We always talk about that dopamine and the idea that in many ways a weight session can actually become a cardio session because your heart rate rises. And so it sort of defeats the object of that. And then also your focus shifts from the internal focus of the lift to an external distraction. And therefore, you're defeating the object of one of the core advantages of a weight training session. The core advantage of weight training is totally focused on your mind-muscle connection and nothing else, totally removing all distractions to de-stress you from the morning at work, if you're doing it at lunchtime, or from the day at work, if you're doing it in the evening, because you're then going back to check your phone, either to look at what's going on in the markets, or to look at colleagues' work emails, or doom scrolling on your Instagram, and it's defeating the object of being in the gym. So it's really, really critical to separate the two. And I've read that it's far more important to think about music.
Yeah.
So I obviously need my phone, as you said, because it's on my True Coach on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got my reps and the weights that I've got to lift. And I use my phone as my logbook, in effect. But if you just use the phone for logging and listening to music and nothing else, that's the perfect scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people might be like, well, where on earth would you start when it comes to this kind of thing? So if they're saying, oh, well, actually, I'm spending a lot of time on my phone and you know, even if you think about like 5 hours a day, right? If your screen time's 5 hours a day, that's 35 hours a week. And if that is predominantly social media, like think about it. Like you walk in to the room and you see someone there just going like that. Is that really how you want to spend your life? Like we get one shot at this thing, right? And spending even 35, I know people who are spending, trust me, a lot more than that as well. And just really, really think, okay, that is not what I was brought on this planet to do. Like it's that simple. So one of the places I would start is the mornings, first thing. So you will realize how much you're on your phone as well, where you really try for the first half an hour of the day to not go on your phone. How hard that is will tell you how, oh my goodness, this is how much I rely on it. So one of the things I would do is make sure first 30 minutes of the day, you're like no phone whatsoever. And if that means waking up a bit earlier, I think it's very much worth doing, because effectively, if you are going on your phone first thing, it immediately spikes your dopamine levels with artificial dopamine. So what that does is effectively it takes your dopamine levels above base level. And whilst you're waking up in that first half an hour, what you want to do is create dopamine bankers. Make the bed, open the curtains. If you can get some natural light, great. Cold shower, loves it. Empty the dishwasher. Really simple tasks that are dopamine bankers that will get you to base level. Because what's happening to so many people is they're going on the phones immediately, spiking their dopamine, and then they might scroll on the phone for like half an hour, and then they feel knackered. It's because you've completely depleted yourself of dopamine and your brain is so overloaded, right?
Yeah.
It's staggering.
And the other thing is, many people who've got, I don't know, careers that involve being reachable. Obviously, me in the financial markets, that's a key thing. Anyone with clients, key thing. Is it essential to be reachable 24/7?
That's a big one.
Can you basically have an hour where you're not reachable? And is it productive to be reachable every single hour of the day? And what message does it send to other people if you are reachable every single hour of the day and you have no time that you're not reachable? I think you've got to think about that. And I think high performers in the business sector especially feel the necessity to always be reachable. And I think that is actually a fallacy, and it reduces your productivity if you're permanently reachable. And you can set an out of office. And if your out of office says from 6 till 7, I'm in the gym, I'll come back to you when it's finished. When is there a situation where you always need to respond between 6 and 7 in the morning? If it's really incredibly urgent, then that person can probably call the reception of the gym and get you because your message says I'm in the gym. So you are in effect reachable in another way. And I think it really sends a message that you are prioritizing your time, you have structure to your day, and you are an organized person if you have the ability to say, I'm not reachable for this 1 hour. And also, how many times have we, Angus knows this with me, instantly responded to a message and then regretted it? Because you basically didn't need to respond. You could have waited and thought and gave a more thoughtful response to that person. And so many times I've got a draft folder at work where if I'm having a particularly angry reaction to an incoming email, I will draft the response, wait for a few hours, and then decide whether to send it later. And I can tell you that draft folder is just full and has never been sent. Because you realize that the instant responses are bad responses. And so it's really worthwhile, I think, segregating that hour in the gym as a time when you don't actually communicate.
Yeah. And I think a big mistake people make is, like in the modern day world, is they're lying about their downtime. So I know people, and you'll be listening to this, you know who you are, where they'll sit at home it might even be with their other half. They'll put on a movie and they don't watch the movie because they're actually just spending time on the phone, and they're like, oh, what happened in that movie? Your mind is not relaxing. So if you're knackered the whole time, yes, there are people with very stressful jobs. Obviously, you may have had lack of sleep. That is a factor. But if you're tired and then you're eating rubbish and then you're scrolling on a phone, no wonder you feel absolutely exhausted, because you're constantly thinking, oh, I didn't really do much today. But your brain is so overstimulated, and you really need to actually learn to love boredom. And one of the things that I've got a real shift in mind is I've spoken about it in the past, but something that I'm so vigilant on now is just dopamine banking. And I know I touched on it in the morning, but throughout the day, actually doing things that you see as a task or a chore, if you change the language to dopamine bankers, you feel amazing because your brain craves that productivity. So it is simple things like, I'm reading more than I ever have before. And I've actually, funnily enough, now really enjoy it. And I actually want to read more because of the fact that I'm like, oh, it makes me feel great. And then those little tasks throughout the day, I'm way more helpful in the house with Izzy. I'm actually far more productive in work. I'm not procrastinating because I've become so disciplined by saying, right, tech is for productivity. That's it. And in this developing world, with AI that's to come on another level, absolutely. If you can utilize it to your advantage, it is going to be so powerful. But at the moment, a lot of your tiredness, sadness, excuses is down to this thing in your hand that you just keep spending hours and hours just going like this.
And the other thing in the gym, I suppose you could define it for me as the Imran downer. So if you're in the gym and between your sets, you look at your Instagram and then a picture of Imran looking totally shredded and jacked pops up, you instantly feel negative about yourself. And you're in the gym trying to feel positive about yourself and what you're trying to achieve. And if you're staring at someone doing something that you think is superior to your own body form, then it's going to have a negative impact on you as well. So don't stare at social media full of other people that you think look more attractive than you.
But interesting enough, G-Dog, I haven't got the direct studies because this is large observational studies. But they are, trust me, I did properly look them up to see if they were legit. So I'm just making that clear. But large observational studies consistently link higher social media use with greater anxiety, stress, and depressive symptoms. Why? Because constant comparison, highlight reels versus real life, information overload, news cycles, perfection culture, your nervous system stays slightly activated all day, and an anxious brain will always overthink. An overthinking brain hesitates, and what's hesitation do? It kills momentum. So, you can look this up, you can deep dive as much as you want. What you're doing with your phone in between sets is going to be increasing your anxiety. It's going to be increasing your stress. It's going to be increasing your depressive symptoms. It's going to making you less productive. And you're like, oh, I'm just a procrastinator. You're not. You're just hooked to your phone. I'm sorry. I am a heavily dyslexic brain, right? I know, having said I was someone that was, oh yeah, I just procrastinate, I was lying to myself. It's very, very simple, but I do not deny it is hard. It is really hard to be disciplined with your phone, particularly when you've got notifications going on. So I do sympathize, but on a personal level, it's been life-changing. And clients, I know we touched on it briefly with yourself as well, the training, but the clients that are seeing the best results are the ones who are on their phone the least, because they're so focused. In the gym, I'm like, okay, how hard are you hitting the gym? Let's see your training intensity. They're not constantly distracted in between sets. And if you want the best results possible, you need your focus in the gym.
It's true. Bin the phone. Switch it off. I honestly, I'm listening to this and I'm really taking it in, because I definitely do. And I've obviously got better in the past few weeks, but
you're quite lucky in the sense of, because you have such a full-on job that is high intensity and long hours, right? That it's not been as big a problem for you because you are really productive anyway. But it'll be interesting enough. I think it'll be really affecting your downtime because you'll be thinking, oh, I've now got time to go on Instagram and scroll. When obviously for you, Instagram is part of your life now and you're trying to, but it's just being really vigilant on those side of things. But yeah, there is, as I said, the good news is there's been plenty of intervention studies that show that when people reduce smartphone usage for just a few weeks, depressive symptoms decrease, stress reduces, sleep improves. So basically, the damage done is not permanent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you control the input, performance will improve. And I'm just going to close with a statement, G-Dog. We like a closing statement, don't we? So your phone is not the enemy, but it is the most powerful environmental factor influencing your focus, dopamine system, sleep, anxiety levels, and discipline. And if you want better progress in the gym, better work output, more confidence, and less anxiety, start by controlling the thing you check 200 times a day. Because the real progress killer is not your program, it's your attention. You guys probably noticed I actually spoke about that probably more passionately than I've spoken about a lot of things on this podcast. And, you know, I like to have a very balanced approach and like to always think, okay, why someone, but I'm so passionate about this because it's completely changed my life. And I really don't mean that in a dramatic sense. And I've seen people around me it's changed their life of as well when they've just gone, actually, do you know what? Right, my phone is for productivity. My laptop is for productivity. And anything I do on there is delayed gratification. And gosh, it's so good. Happy with that, G-Dog?
Happy.
5 stars. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Live for Life podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Next time.